It was the bloodiest conflict in American history, a war that split a nation in two, brother against brother, state against state. But before the smoke of Gettysburg, before the cannons of Fort Sumter roared, there was tension, pressure, and a country on the edge of collapse. What drove Americans to such a devastating war? Let's go back before the first shots were fired to understand what really sparked the American Civil War. In the early 1800s, America was growing fast. New territories were being added, railroads spread westward, and new states were formed. But beneath the progress, something darker was brewing. The North and South were becoming two very different worlds. In the North, cities were expanding. Factories buzzed with machines. Immigrants poured in, and the economy was driven by industry, trade, and wage labor. But in the South, vast plantations stretched across the land, worked by millions of enslaved African Americans. Cotton was king, and slavery was its foundation. Two regions, two economies, two visions for America. And the question at the heart of it all, should slavery expand, stay the same, or be abolished entirely? In 1793, Eli Whitney invented something seemingly simple, the cotton gin, a device to quickly separate cotton fibers from seeds. But its impact was massive. With the cotton gin, cotton production skyrocketed, and so did the demand for enslaved labor. What had seemed like a declining institution suddenly became essential to the Southern economy. By the mid-1800s, the South was producing over 75% of the world's cotton, and enslaved labor fueled it. Technology had reignited slavery and deepened the divide between North and South. As America pushed westward, every new territory raised the same burning question: will it be free or slave? In 1820, the Missouri Compromise tried to keep the balance, admitting Missouri as a slave state and Maine as a free one, while banning slavery north of a certain line. But the peace wouldn't last. The war with Mexico in the 1840s brought in vast new lands. The Compromise of 1850 tried again to settle things. California was admitted as a free state, but the new fugitive slave law infuriated Northerners. Then came the Kansas-Nebraska Act of 1854, which allowed settlers to vote on whether to allow slavery. The result? Bleeding Kansas, a preview of the violence to come. Abolitionists and pro-slavery settlers fought in the streets. The nation watched in horror. The North and South weren't just economically different. They had become culturally alien to each other. In the North, reform movements blossomed. Abolitionism, temperance, public education. Cities were crowded and industrial. In the South, aristocratic values and honor culture prevailed. Life was rural. The elite planter class viewed Northern reformers as meddlers and fanatics. The press on both sides painted the other as dangerous and extreme. They spoke the same language, but lived in different worlds. The final spark came in 1860. Abraham Lincoln, a relatively unknown lawyer from Illinois, ran for president as a Republican. A new party formed in direct opposition to slavery's expansion. Lincoln didn't call for the immediate abolition of slavery, but he made one thing clear: slavery would not spread into new territories. To the Southern states, that was unacceptable. Before Lincoln even took office, South Carolina seceded from the Union. Within months, 6 more states followed, forming the Confederate States of America, with Jefferson Davis as their president. They believed they were preserving their rights and their way of life. To Lincoln and the North, it was rebellion. In 1857, the Supreme Court made one of its most infamous rulings, the Dred Scott decision. Dred Scott, an enslaved man, sued for his freedom after living in free territory. But the court ruled against him. Chief Justice Roger Taney declared that African Americans had no rights which the white man was bound to respect, and that Congress had no power to ban slavery in the territories. The North was outraged. The South celebrated. and the fragile hope for compromise shattered. When Abraham Lincoln ran for president in 1860, he wasn't even on the ballot in most Southern states. He still won. To Southerners, this was terrifying. How could a president be elected without their support and threaten their entire system? South Carolina didn't wait. Just weeks after the election, it voted to secede. Other states followed in a chain reaction. For the South, Lincoln's victory meant the end of their way of life. For the North, it was a challenge to the Union itself. Tensions exploded at Fort Sumter in April 1861. A Union fort in Charleston Harbor was surrounded by Confederate forces. Lincoln sent supplies, not soldiers, but the Confederates opened fire. After 34 hours of bombardment, the Union surrendered the fort. Now, there was no turning back. The nation was at war with itself. So what sparked the Civil War? It wasn't just one thing. It was a perfect storm of politics, economics, ideology, and human suffering. It was the story of a nation built on freedom, but divided by slavery. And it was a war not only over land and laws, but over the very soul of America. In the next episode, we dive into the first battles of this brutal conflict, from Fort Sumter to the first major clash at Bull Run, where soldiers marched in with pride and many never returned.